Hey, hello everybody. Um, this is Nanette Kennedy with Humanities Team and Evolution Revolution, and we are reading Neil Donald Walsh's Conversations with God book. Um, really, come back to me. Anyway, we are on Chapter 9, The Illusion of Superiority. And what page again did you say that was?
85.
85 in paper copy. And unless anybody has a comment or something prior to getting started, speak now. Okay. Linda, please and thank
All
you.
right.
Take it away.
This is Communion with God by Neil Donald Walsh, Chapter 9, The Illusion of Superiority. And this is God speaking. This is the ninth illusion. Superiority exists. Humans concluded that if conditionality existed, then knowing the conditions would be necessary to enjoy and create the life and the afterlife that one desired. This conclusion was unavoidable, as was this: those who knew the conditions were better off than those who did not. And it did not take much time for the human race to remove the word off from the previous sentence. Thus, the idea of superiority was born. Superiority had many uses. Chief among them was providing inarguable justification for doing whatever was needed in order to guarantee that enough of everything, including God's love, was available. Knowing the conditions gave one the right to ignore others, or to seek to convert others, or simply eliminate others who did not know the conditions or agree to them. Therefore, seeking to know the conditions of life became a major preoccupation. Knowing the conditions of life was called science. Knowing the conditions of the afterlife was called conscience. If one knew these conditions and understood them, one was said to have a good conscience, or to be conscious. A high consciousness was said to result from the earnest study of something you call theology, from theo and ology, or loosely, God logic. After much study, it was concluded that there were certain circumstances under which the requirement could be met, and certain circumstances under which that was impossible. There were also certain circumstances under which one could be forgiven for not having met the requirement. These circumstances came to be known as the conditions. Having was added to doing in your experience. When you have enough brains, you can do the thing called get good grades, graduate at the top of your class, find a great job. Then you can be the thing called successful. When you have enough money, you can do the thing called buy a wonderful home, and you can be the thing called secure. When you have enough time, you can do the thing called take a vacation, and you can be the thing called rested, refreshed, and relaxed. When you have enough power, you can do the thing called determine your own destiny, and you can be the thing called free. When you have enough faith, you can do the thing called find God, and you can be the thing called saved. This is how you set up your world. When someone has the right stuff, they can do the right things, the things that allow them to be what they've always wanted to be. The difficulty is that people cannot easily do all the things they need to do unless they have all of the things they need to have. They cannot get a good job and rise to the top, even if they have the brains, unless they are also the right gender. They cannot buy a wonderful house, even if they have the money, unless they also have the right skin color. They cannot find God, even if they have the faith, unless they also have the right religious beliefs. Having the right stuff is not a guarantee of getting all that you desire, but it gives you a big head start. The more knowledge of these conditions one acquired, or was thought to have acquired, the more superior one was understood to be. As has been mentioned, this superiority gave people the authority, or encouraged people to grant themselves the authority to do whatever they felt was necessary in order to assure themselves more life and more God, neither of which there was enough of. This is why you've had to do what you've had to do, because there was not enough. This is what you have told yourself, and your entire species has accepted this mantra. There's more than one of you, and so there is not enough to go around, not enough food, not enough money, not enough love, not enough God. You have to compete for it. And if you're going to compete, you have to have some way of figuring out who wins. Superiority was your answer. And superiority is based on certain conditions. Some humans sought to guarantee that they would win, and so arbitrarily added to the conditions. They made it possible to declare themselves the victors in advance. They declared, for example, that males were superior to females. Wasn't this self-evident? Some of the thinkers among you asked. Of course, it was mostly males doing the asking. Similarly, whites were pronounced to be superior, then later Americans, and of course, Christians. Or was it Russians and Jews or women? Could such things be true? Of course they could. It all depended on who was creating the system. The very earliest superior beings were not male, and males actually agreed. After all, were females not the bringers of life? And was life not that for which everyone had the highest desire? So it was during your matriarchal period that females were considered superior. Similarly, the white race was not the first race, and therefore not superior. In truth, it is not superior today, nor are males superior, nor Jews, nor Christians, nor Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, or Democrats, or Republicans, conservatives, or communists, or anything else whatsoever. Here is the truth that will set you free, the truth you cannot allow to be spoken, because it will set everyone free. There is no such thing as superiority. You have made it all up. You have defined what you think is superior based on your preferences and your desires and your understandings, which are very limited indeed. You have announced that you proclaim to be better based on your perspective and your objectives and your agenda. Yet some of you have claimed this is my agenda. God is the one who named the chosen people, or the one true faith, or the only path to salvation. All of this goes back to the first illusion, need exists. You imagine that because God has needs, that God has an agenda. This was your first mistake, and it has led to what would be your last. For I will tell you this, your idea of superiority could be the last mistake you ever make. Humans think that they are superior to nature, and so they seek to subdue it. In doing this, they destroy the very habitat which was created to protect them and to be their paradise. Humans think that they are superior to each other, and so they seek to subdue each other. In doing this, they destroy the very family that was created to embrace them and to give them love. Your species is making it very difficult to experience life in its present form because of your belief in the illusions. By not using the illusions as they were intended, you are turning what was intended to be a beautiful dream into a living nightmare. But you can undo all of this right now. Simply see the illusions for what they are, realities contrived for a purpose, and then stop living them as if they were real. In particular, stop living the ninth illusion with such conviction. Indeed, use the illusion to notice that superiority is not real. There can be no such thing as superiority when we are all one. A thing cannot be superior to itself. All things are one thing, and there is nothing else. We are all one is more than a beautiful slogan. It is a precise description of the nature of ultimate reality. When you understand this, you begin experiencing life and treating each other in a new way. You will see the relationship of all things differently. You notice the connectedness at a much higher level. Your awareness is expanded. Your insight becomes very keen. You quite literally see in. This increased ability to peer deeply into life allows you to look past the illusion and to recognize, to know again, to recognize your reality. It is by this process that you remember who you really are. This moment from not knowing to knowing again may be made slowly. The journey may be undertaken in small steps that can produce large advances. Always remember that. One such small step would be to put an end to better. The idea of superiority is the most seductive idea ever visited upon the human race. It can turn the heart to stone. It can change warm to cold, yes to no, in an instant. A single sentence uttered from your pulpits, lecterns, and rostrums by your national congresses and your world summit leaders could change everything. Ours is not a better way. Ours is merely another way. This humble utterance could begin to heal the divisions between your religions, close the gap between your political parties, curb the conflicts between your nations. With one word, you could end them. Namaste. God in me honors God in you. How simple, how beautiful, how wondrous indeed Yet how difficult when one is caught up in the illusion to see God in everyone and everything. Each person would have to be aware of the illusion, be aware that it is an illusion. Yet, if it is not an illusion, but is life as it really is, then how is it that precisely when we imagine ourselves to be superior, we behave in the most inferior ways? Why is it exactly when we think ourselves better that we act worse? Clearly, there was a flaw in the ninth illusion. This should have revealed the idea of superiority as false. But humans knew at some very deep level that they could not give up the illusion, or something very vital would come to an end. And again, they were right, but again, they made a mistake. Instead of seeing the illusion as an illusion and using it for the purpose for which it was intended, they thought they had to fix the flaw. It was to fix the flaw in the ninth illusion that the 10th illusion was created. End of chapter.
Thank you, Linda. Anybody have some jumping off points?
Well, I was thinking of my daughter when she was a teenager and how she had to have Abercrombie and Fitch all across her shirt, or Gap or something like that. I mean, because that made them fit in with the people who were superior. And I would tear my hair out. I'd tell her, are you a follower or a leader? Like, are you stupid or smart? You know, I mean, they're setting these rules and you're scrambling with my budget to follow them.
And how many of our parents would say things like, I can't believe you did that. If so-and-so was going to jump off the bridge, would you jump off the bridge? It is the same thing of this superiority idea, not jumping off the bridge, but most of us were raised in that line of thinking. Pardon me while I go tell two 10-year-olds to be quiet. And I am superior.
I think it can be tricky because we can look at something that's happening around us. We can look at what other people are doing. And if we have another way that we think would work better, it can be tricky to realize that even though we may have a way that might work better, that it's not for us even to tell those people. You know, it's unless it's somehow directly impacting us, it's really more appropriate to let people live their own lives without our input.
Can you give us an example, Linda?
I think that it really, I think it happens in our lives constantly, and we're probably most of the time desensitized to it. No, but I think, you just think about if you go to the store, do you have the experience of seeing someone and thinking, well, they shouldn't have dressed that way, or that doesn't look very good, or you see somebody, doing something and it's like, well, there's a better way to do that. That's kind of what I mean. Does that make sense? It's because it's not necessarily our business, right? Just because we can see something happening does not imply or mean that it's our business. That's kind of what I'm talking about. It's like that constant distraction of the illusion that there's this separation between us and that there are these other people out there.
I'm not sure I'm up for this book. I mean, it's like my balloon has been poked and the air is going out. Like I've just lost even more of my stupidity and I'm not happy.
I don't think you should look at that as stupidity. I think you should look at, and this may not be the right words, but opportunities for learning or for improving.
I don't want to improve anymore.
Okay, well, you stay right where you are. And one of the things I kept thinking about while listening to Linda read this, and for anybody on the call who's ever been to a place that just has the most abject poverty on the planet, I really did not feel superior. If anything, I felt I could see these people, and I'm going to talk about a town in South Africa. It's called Soweto, and it is very, very poverty, with no plumbing, no running water. But their families, or I should say, and their families are happy playing with a soccer ball. I think they're just grateful that they have the tin roof over their head. And I think to myself, maybe it's because of a lack of material items, and they have, and I'm not saying everyone is the same, but a lack of material items puts them in a place to appreciate the things that really count in our lives, which is our families, sharing food with neighbors, whatever it may be. And really, there was lots of happy people playing instruments, getting together in circles and playing the drums and singing and doing all these things. And I'm not saying they don't have their rough and unhappy times. But I don't know. I just kept thinking of that while you were reading over.
There's something in here about getting good grades. And I think the illusion of superiority starts in a lot of places with schools, because we're so geared towards getting children good grades, except in some alternative schools and Steiner schools, that the kids who get grades are the top kids. And we could change everything by not grading. Over.
I agree with that. And I had a professor who was from Korea, and he taught a theology class in Eastern beliefs. And I took him twice, and 2 times in the semester we would have tests. He never did pop quizzes. He never did a lot of things that other teachers and professors do. Because he said in Korea, we know that when our students graduate from college, they will have the availability to go to a library and look something up. They'll have the ability to confer with others to find out information. And I don't know about in Europe, but in the United States, we have this thing where you've got to get these grades in order to get out of school. And it puts us in a position where it's almost like there's this idea out there that we'll never be able to go research anything, you know, and we're expected to keep all this stuff in our heads, which I think makes it for a lot of people to feel inferior, because there are some people that can do that, but most of us cannot. And I just think it's important that we learn more simple things, like, you know, you might be really, really good in economics. So-and-so might be really good in literature. So-and-so might be really good. We don't have to be all the same, and we don't all have to be at the same level. But we are raised to think there is this competition. Over.
Yeah, you know, I think if when we were born and we're growing up, if what the emphasis was on community, because when you think about it, we come into form to be in service to each other and to have the experience of community. Like, that's why we come into form. We don't come into form to go to college. We don't come into form to get a specific job or build a specific house or get the biggest sailboat. So if we were, instead of what we are constantly taught now, if instead we were taught that we come into form to be in community and to serve others, and it would, I think, strip away that need to feel superior, and it would remind us of why we're really here, and would help us a great deal more, I think, achieve a more awakened living than what we're living now. Over.
So you're saying it's like an octopus with its tentacles out holding hands with other octopuses, octopi.
We're all
Instead of
one.
this hierarchy. That's what you're
Right.
saying.
Yeah.
Well, and even think about your undersea metaphor. Look how many fish swim in schools. You know, that's their community.
Yeah, but are they learning anything? That's what I want to know.
Well, it is a school of fish. um, I don't know. And I think maybe animals is a good topic to bring up because I don't know that a lion who's king of the jungle really has a conscious thought in his head that he's superior. And maybe he does. I don't know. But I think this is where we can get in trouble on this topic, that there is a hierarchy. You know, that so-and-so is the king of the jungle and the little chipmunk is, you know, fodder for foot stomping. I don't know. Anybody else?
Well, who supplied those values of so-and-so is the king of the jungle and so-and-so is the fodder for foot stomping? I think those are assigned by us humans. And I think if you just look at nature, nature does its thing and it's not assigning those values. It's just they're following their roles, you know? Just, I don't know. That's all my thought. And the other thought I had was I like swimming in this school with y'all.
We're glad you're in our pond, our oneness pond. Well, Linda, how many pages is the next
Let's see.
chapter?
Four pages.
Oh, not very long. Not very long. Yeah, we should be able to get through that.
Okay, why don't we do that? And this might help our discussion for the illusion of ignorance.
All right.
Okay.
Just before
Okay, this is chapter 10.
God,
Sure.
the ignorance is not an illusion.
Oh, you're too funny. Okay, Linda, go ahead.
This is God speaking. This is the 10th illusion. Ignorance exists. Increasingly, as each illusion was piled upon the last, life became more and more difficult to figure out. Humans asked more and more questions that could not be answered. If this was true, then why that? If that was true, then why this? It wasn't long before philosophers and teachers began throwing up their hands. We don't know, they said, and we don't know if it's possible to know. Thus, the idea of ignorance was born. This idea served so many purposes that it spread quickly and soon became the ultimate answer. We just don't know. Human institutions began finding in this not only a refuge, but a certain kind of power. We don't know turned into we're not supposed to know, which became you do not have the need to know, which finally became what you don't know won't hurt you. This gave religions and governments the authority to say what they chose and act as they pleased without having to give answer to anyone. We're not supposed to know actually became a religious doctrine. There are certain secrets of the universe that God does not want us to know, this doctrine declared, and to even inquire about such things was blasphemy. This doctrine quickly spread from religion to politics and government. The result, there was a time in your history when certain questions asked at certain times in certain ways could get one's head cut off, literally. This prohibition against inquiry elevated ignorance to a desirable attribute. It became very wise and very good manners not to ask questions. It became accepted behavior, indeed, expected behavior. And while the punishment for the offense of impertinent inquiry may not seem quite as severe today as it was in days gone by, there are certain places on your planet where little has changed. Certain totalitarian regimes insist to this very hour that only voices of agreement be heard and that voices of dissent be silenced, sometimes in the most brutal of ways. Some barbaric behaviors are justified by proclamations that they are necessary to ensure order. Protests by the international community are met with indignant sniffs, repressive governments declaring such issues internal matters. Now I tell you this, the essence of love is freedom. Anyone who says they love you and that they are looking out for you will grant you freedom. It is as simple as that. You do not have to look further or deeper for more sophisticated understanding. I have told you before, and I will tell you again. There are only two energies at the core of the human experience: love and fear. Love grants freedom, fear takes it away. Love opens up, fear closes down. Love invites full expression, fear punishes it. And by this measure, you can know whether someone is loving you or fearing you. Do not look to what they say. Look to what they do. Love invites you always to break the bonds of ignorance, to ask any question, to seek any answer, to speak any word, to share any thought, to support any system, to worship any God, to live your truth. Love invites you always to live your truth. That's how you know it is love. I love you. That is why I have come to tell you that ignorance is an illusion. You know everything there is to know about who you really are, which is the essence of love. There is nothing you have to learn. You need merely remember. You have been told that you cannot know God and that to even ask about me is an offense to me. That is not true. Neither of those statements is true. You have been told that there is something that I need from you, and if you do not give it to me, that you may not return home to oneness with me. That is not true. Neither of those statements are true. You have been told that you are separate from me and that you are separate from each other. That is not true. Neither of those statements is true. You have been told that there is not enough and that you must therefore compete with each other for everything, including me. That is not true. Neither of those statements is true. You have been told that if you do not do what I require in this competition, that you will be punished, and that the punishment is condemnation to everlasting torture. This is not true. That is not true. Neither of those statements is true. You have been told that my love for you is conditional, and that if you know and meet my conditions and all the conditions needed to win the competition for life, then you are superior. That is not true. Neither of those statements is true. You have been told, finally, you have been told that you do not know that these statements are untrue and that you can never know because it is all too much for you to understand. That is not true. Neither of those statements is true. Now, here is the truth. 1. God needs nothing. 2, God cannot fail, and neither can you. 3, nothing is separate from anything. 4, there is enough. 5, there is nothing you have to do. 6, you will never be judged. 7, you will never be condemned. 8, love knows no condition. 9, a thing cannot be superior to itself. And 10, you already know all of this. End of chapter. And let me just say that when I was reading that section, I can't even remember where it was now, but I'm sure we could go back and find it. The image that came forward to me was that journalist, that Saudi journalist. That's what moved me.
Yes, yes, Linda. I saw the same thing.
Thank you.
But he's just one high-profile man. The Saudis, with American support, have been killing, starving the people of Yemen, North Yemen, in Sana'a and Hodeidah for 3 years.
Yeah, and we've been helping.
Yeah, but because they don't write articles, no one knows them.
Yeah, I follow Al Jazeera, so I get a lot of foreign articles. I know what you mean.
But that's why you're such a good reader, because you have such a big heart. Thank you. The high-fiving that MBS and Putin did is just tragic, because they're proud to be pariahs together. In other words, what you going to do about it? That's their claim. And so far, they've been getting away with it.
Well, you know what I find interesting about what you just said, Siobhan, and I was thinking about this earlier today, is that things have reached a state of chaos in many places in the world. And I've even noticed this in the United States with President Trump. I'm starting to not get surprised anymore when I hear something, because it's so far out there. And we've accepted a lot of these things, and not just in the US, but things around the world. We've accepted that this is the way things are. And I don't know if that's a self-protective device or if that's a psyche that happens to our psyche after so many times of hearing what we may consider ridiculous. And it's, what do they call that when people who are kidnapped start to like their kidnappers?
Stockholm syndrome.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think for them, as sad as that may seem, that's how they feel like they can survive whatever is going through it. And we've talked about this many times on these calls, is that we can't, I think we get to a point where, like, if we don't quit watching the news, or if we, don't just tune some of these things out, that we can't handle it. And I think that there's arguments for both sides of that. I'm just going to say over.
Here's my question, because we were just reading about the illusion of superiority, and we look at people committing these atrocities, and I mean, this is the hard one. It's like, do I feel superior to MBS and Putin because I don't think that I would do those kinds of things? And I know that there's the difference between 3D and 5D and all of that, and we're supposed to all be one. So I guess I'm going to ask somebody, like maybe Linda or somebody, to kind of give me some perspective here, because I feel like I need help with synthesizing this stuff in this moment. Over.
Well, Mary, I'm not sure if this is going to help or not. What I use, the tool that I use when I'm struggling with this, is to look at that person, whoever it may be. In this case, let's use Putin, and just to realize that as a child growing up, he was probably not taught self-love. He certainly doesn't appear to have been taught oneness or any kind of awakened concepts. And so I then, if I'm struggling with something that he's done, I look at what he's done through the lens of a man who has no self-love or awareness of how life is working. And I'm holding him, like he's not out there. I bring him in and I'm holding him in my heart as I'm doing that. And it's tricky because there's a temptation to get into a mindset of pity or feeling sorry for him, and that isn't it, because whatever you're doing to yourself, right? Because he's not separate. He's a part of us. And so you hold his image in you and love it for what it's needing as a part of you. I don't know. I'll stop talking, because let me know. Does it make any sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you. As soon as you started talking about him as a child, I remembered that that's the thing I do sometimes. It's just sort of like with our president here, if he makes it easy to think of him as a 3-year-old, honestly. And that helps me to have compassion, which is what you're talking about. And the other aspect was, and it also started help as soon as you started talking about it, I started feeling it, which is not putting them out there, because when they're out there, you can demonize them as really not even human. But when you, yes, thinking about them as a human being, muddling through with the resources that they have, you know, there's that thing from NLP. Everybody is doing the best that they can in that particular moment with the resources that they have at their disposal. And that has helped me a lot in life with the people I'm dealing with personally. And I've never really applied it to political leaders until right now when you were talking. So yes, Linda, that actually helps me a lot. I hope it helps other people too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question, Mary.
Yeah, I was going to say it's definitely helped me. And the thing is, we have created Putin. We've all created him because he's put there. We put our leaders in the place that they're in, and we're all responsible. So we are all one in that respect. So he's a product of the world, basically, of humanity and the universe, and we've all created it. We're all responsible. Like it says in Conversations, Hitler didn't do what he did on his own. Over.
That's exactly who I was thinking about as you were talking, Linda. Because, and my daughter had to have been in her teens when she said this to me. She's in her 30s now. And I made some comment about how, it was the comment in book 1 where God says, I've got news for you, Hitler's not in hell. And that's not verbatim, but that's what it meant. And if we've got God in us, then we have to look at each other as our own children as well. And my daughter had said, Mom, do you think Hitler's parents thought he'd grow up to be who he became? And it was such a, like, I never thought of that. And I don't think any parent foresees their child, any child, do something like the Holocaust, for instance. And so I guess we don't need to, but I guess I want to be able to envision these people that get on my last nerve as children and hold them and just say, don't do that again. So I think
Can I do the meditation real quick to do exactly that?
Yes, you may, if everybody's okay with that.
Yes. Before you start, Shabana, I just want to say one of the tools that I use is to think of each moment as a gift. So regardless of what the moment contains, and it could be me hearing about some, horrible thing, me watching those two at the G20 summit, giving themselves the high fives, the Saudi prince and Putin, in each moment, it's a gift. It's a gift for us to learn about ourselves and to choose how we want to respond.
Thank you. Lord God, thank you for the gift of the high five that MBS and Putin gave each other, because they were just showing how within each of us and all of humanity, there is this desire to assert power and superiority, to assert separation and dominance. But we're all one. There's a Putin and MBS and a Donald Trump inside every one of us, because we are all one. But right here, right now, all 7 of us on this call are holding our hearts and minds and hands together in loving the broken, sad, deprived, disjointed, lonely, parts which are part of us and we are a part of them. And we're calling upon our hearts and the hearts of the highly evolved beings across the universes who are witnessing our planet right here, right now. We're calling upon them to join us in loving every single part of each human and of all of humanity and of all the universes, because we are one. And our intention to love and heal has already been granted. And so we give you thanks. Amen.
Nanette, you're on mute.
I'm glad that wasn't like my first confession. I did that for my first confession when I was younger. I just went on and on and on about all my sins, and then the door opened and the priest said, "Bless you, my child." how long has it been since your confession? I was like, oh my God, I just read all that in the dark. But anyway, I just want to say I love you all. And let's just continue to remember to keep love at the forefront. And we'll see each other next week.
Thank you, Nanette.
Yes, and thank you for the meditation. And it looks like Linda dropped off, but I'm going to thank her for doing the reading.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.